Good morning, everybody. Hello, 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 and welcome. I'm just seeing the numbers continuing to tick up as you all filter through over the airwaves. So welcome, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. It would be lovely if you could introduce yourself over the chat, please. Tell us where you're calling from, maybe a little bit about your job role, just so that we can get to know you a little bit and you can get to know each other through the chat too. I'm very happy to be joined by Francis and Denise. If you want to say hello.
Hi there. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to be here.
Absolutely, on a nice, bright, sunny morning as well. After so many grey days, it's very nice, isn't it? Nice to have the change.
Yeah, it's a bonus at the end of what they call a summer, I believe, but I'm not going to complain.
Maybe it's an Indian summer we're getting now.
Yeah, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Do you have any weather experts joining us today? Perhaps you could give us a bit of an indication how long we might have the sunshine for. Lovely.
Yeah, I've heard it's till the end of the week.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, just in time for the weekend.
Yeah, it's pretty standard.
Well, thanks everybody. I can see the numbers have steadied off now, because I think it takes a little while for everyone to kind of come through the airwaves. Welcome and thank you again for joining us this morning. Thank you, Sue, for introducing yourself in the chat. Please do keep that going. So we'll be talking all about the connection between finances and our well-being this morning. And I guess financial well-being is an area which perhaps doesn't get the spotlight as much as the other areas of well-being, but the facts do speak for themselves. So a study by the CIPD found that 20% of employees have lost sleep over worrying about money, and actually 1 in 4 found that money worries were impacting their ability to work. So it's a big pressing problem, and that study actually I think was from a couple of years back, so it's possible that during the pandemic those numbers have increased even further. So that's why I'm over the moon that we have the marvelous Denise, who is CEO at Lantern, an award-winning debt purchaser, and Francis, a director in Gallagher's organisational wellbeing practice and advisory board member with Engage for Success. So they're both experts in this area and can help us explore the connections between finances and wellbeing and what employers can do to support. So I like to keep sessions like this quite informal, and dare I say it, fun. So we'll ease in with some introductions and brief presentations from both before getting stuck into a discussion. But please do engage with us throughout. Let's keep it interesting. Tell us who you are, say hello through the chat. If you hear something interesting, let us know. And of course, also do submit your questions through the Q&A, because we'll be chewing through all of those after the presentations. And that, to be honest, is my favourite part of these sessions, to see all those questions coming through. So without further ado, I guess we'll get stuck into the introductions. Oh, I should probably mention who I am as well. I'm Beth Sampson, so I'm the people lead from Investors in People. Hi, Ryan. And I'll go to Denise first for those introductions and your presentation, please.
Okay, so hi everyone. As Beth said, I'm Denise Crossley from Lantern, and we're an award-winning debt purchaser. Not as scary as we sound. We actually own now 3.6 million customers that we've purchased along the way over the last 10 or so years, and I guess we predominantly buy in the alternative lending sector, but also buy from banks, retail sector. Lantern, by the way, is our name because we think we are a leading light in our sector, in that we know how things should be done properly, and we're a light at the end of the tunnel for the customer, in that we help them to find a solution. And you know, we're not the big scary debt collector. It's important to say that. We have thousands of discussions every single day with customers who are in financial difficulty. We've got to interact with them correctly. We have to, I guess, operate with empathy and understanding. And it's important that our agents are able to do that too, because they're the ones that are facing the customers, and have to give them a great customer journey. And that actually may mean that we don't come off the call with money, but if that's the right thing to do for the customer, then that's how we operate. So if we have the next slide, please. Thank you. And just to echo what Beth said earlier, there is a great connection between problem debts and mental health. A lot of customers who are in financial difficulty stick their head in the sand. They can't deal with things. They worry at the opening emails, opening letters, taking calls, and that cycle just continues. You get customers with mental health problems that don't know how to manage their finances too, and then end up in problem debt. So it is a vicious circle, and it's something that all our staff, every single person here, understands, so that we can deal with people in the correct manner. Next slide, please. Thank you. I've just pointed a few things out here that can, might trigger anxiety and panic. I've just mentioned about opening envelopes or emails, or even attending benefit assessments. They're meant to be helpful, but people sometimes just shy away from them because it freaks them out, basically. And everybody's different. It can lead to sleep problems, and does lead to sleep problems, which then exacerbates the situation because they're not thinking clearly. We've got customers here that may not be able to afford food, water, heating, things like that. They're what we class as our truly vulnerable customers. And those are the ones that we may end up not collecting money from and writing debts off to assist. You can feel very lonely and isolated when you're in debt. You just think it's you. And I think speaking to an organisation like ours helps them to understand there are thousands, hundreds of thousands of people in the same boat, and talking about it and trying to come to a solution is what is best for them, because the solution, as I said, may mean that we don't collect money from them. So it's better to chat about it. But they don't know that. They need to engage to experience the help and support we can give them. Next slide, please. And as I'm sure all know, debt does carry a stigma with it, but it has to change. And I sit on I didn't tell Beth this actually at the beginning, but I sit on the industry trade body board, and have done for over 20 years, because I'm trying to, and I have tried to change the way our industry sector operates, along with my colleagues on the board, and it has changed enormously. I've been in this business for 40 years. And it's completely different now to what it was like then, which is much better. TV soaps, unfortunately, don't help matters because they only show one side of the equation, and that's not helpful because they portray an image of people knocking on the door, and it's not really right. There are bailiffs that operate, but they're not in our sector. I think you've got two types of customers when they're in debt, and we call them customers now, not debtors. Well, probably three types. You have got some that never have an intention to pay, but they're few and far between. You have customers that thought they could pay and then couldn't because they spent too much and they couldn't manage their own affordability at the point of taking out debt or credit. And then you have those that could afford it and have a life shock, like a bereavement or a loss of job. And then all of a sudden they've got one big income that's not there, and they can't maintain their monthly payments. So we encourage customers to deal with their debts and to get in touch with us. Engagement doesn't mean to say that we're going to insist that they pay something. It's quite the opposite. We will listen to the customer's situation. We'll go through a very detailed income and expenditure with them to find out how much they can afford. And even then, we won't take 100% of their net disposable income. And some, as I say, we don't take money at all. So I think we all need to talk about debt. It needs to be out there. We have a generation that live on credit and they're used to that. But unfortunately, it can get them into trouble. So we need to talk about it. And one thing I haven't said on here is that I think education is absolutely key in schools, because that's where it should start. Next slide, please. So just going on the back of what I said, we care, and we do care for our customers. We have what we call heart values here. which is honesty, empathy, accountability, responsibility and transparency. And we live and breathe those heart values in this business from me down and bottom up. Every single person in the business understands that. And I'll always say to my guys, when you're on the phone to a customer, I want you to treat them like you would to a loved member of your family, whether it's your mother, grandmother, grandfather, cousin, auntie, mother. How would you want them to be treated? Because that's how I want you to treat our customers, and it works. Listening, it's an absolute skill to listen and not to interrupt people. Some of our customers can be facing short-term problems, and some of them have got life-changing events. We have, people that are terminally ill, and some of those customers, they have a need to clear things down before their life ends, and we have to listen to them too. We can't say to them, no, we'll write your debt off, if that's not what they want. So it's about listening to people and getting the right outcome for them. Our scorecards that we use with agents is based on, was it the right customer outcome? Not did we take the money? Did we get a payment arrangement? Was it the best outcome? And did we treat the customer fairly? Flexibility, we've got to be flexible. If they want to change payment arrangements, they have to come to us and tell us. If their circumstances change for any reason, they need to come and talk to us so we can help them further. So we encourage customers to engage with us. Next slide, please. So, I talked about our people. Getting our people in the right frame of mind and having them trained is absolutely imperative. We do a very interactive 6 to 8 week induction training plan. We have coaches and buddies so that they're never on their own, because equally our agents have to listen to these stories day in, day out, and it can be quite draining at times. We have employee representatives that are wellbeing champions, that if an agent has had a difficult call or someone says they feel like committing suicide, these are few and far between, by the way, but they do happen now and again, and we need to support our agents if they have a difficult call, whatever that call may be. They may also, of course, be going through similar things themselves. Just because they work for a debt purchaser or a debt collection agency doesn't mean they won't have their own debt to deal with, because it's widespread. So we have to understand that and appreciate that and think about how we can support them. So we undertake regular pulse surveys on wellbeing and welfare. And if we see anything at all, we pick up on it straight away to make sure that they are enjoying their job, they're not finding it difficult, and they've got the support they need when they need it. Next slide, please. So I guess to summarize, most of the journeys in relation to debt, they are long ones. Some customers can be paying off debt for 10 years, even longer. We encourage them to get the debts cleared down sooner, but it's not always possible. So looking after and managing those vulnerable customers is key, and looking after our people who are looking after them is key. I actually hold regular town hall meetings, and I hold regular ideas meetings with colleagues across the business, not with just the senior management team, but with all the people we employ. I meet and sit down with every single person that joins this business during their induction and afterwards to make sure they're okay, to make sure they understand what it is the business is expecting and what I'm expecting as the CEO, and that my door is literally always open for anyone to come and talk to me at any time for anything. And I think that's why when we decided to do Invest in People, we had to be at the right stage. And these things don't happen overnight. They take planning. But when you plan and then execute, the feeling is just wonderful when you have a business that runs well, because you look after people, internal and external. That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Denise. And shall I hand over to you now, Francis, to share your introduction and your slides? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, hello. No, by all means. Hi, everybody. It's really great to be here. And I'm just to say I'm not in my home. I don't tend to put our company tenants on the back of my home wall. I'm actually in the office here in Wakefield. This is our pension communications and financial wellbeing team at Gallagher. So we are a global insurance risk and people experience consultancy. So we help organisations to improve the wellbeing of their people. And I'm a director within our organisational wellbeing team. I'm also privileged to be on the steering group for the pensions dashboard, which is essentially a financial wellbeing strategy led by government to reunite people with their lost pensions. And we recognise that saving for the future and feeling that you are in control of your saving is a big driver of financial wellbeing. So really excited to continue in that programme and see that being launched for the whole of the UK, which is great. So this is our team, dynamic bunch of people that are really focused on engaging people with their pensions and their financial wellbeing. And so we've been really grappling at Gallagher with how do we help each other in this topic. Let's not just help other organisations, but how do we actually support each other in this area? Because it is a problem and we know it's a challenge. We recognise that the last 18 months have really stress tested people's personal finances. Financial well-being was very much an agenda, 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. As Denise has said, this is nothing new, but it has put a huge pressure on people greater than ever before. What is encouraging, however, despite some of those statistics you see there on the screen, is that we are seeing a step change in organisations seeing it as their responsibility to support their employees. Now, when I say support, it's a very broad word, and you get different ends of the spectrum. You get some employers that will say, look, we pay you a salary, we give you benefits, and frankly, your finances and your financial well-being is your own business. And then at the other end of the spectrum, you'll get employers that say, we're going to do workplace loans for you. We're going to provide all sorts of solutions to help you with voucher schemes. And they're very, very hands-on. We're going to have one-to-one coaching. We're going to have financial advisors in the business for a financial wellbeing clinic every week. And, so that's at one end of the spectrum. Now, what we tend to see is generally organizations in the middle of that. So we recognize that if our people are supporting their financial well-being, they're going to be performing better and they're going to be better in themselves and for the organisation. So we are seeing this step change. The question is, how can people actually help their employees? So first thing we start is what is financial wellbeing? If you Google the topic, there's loads of definitions. The Money and Pension Service have got a really good definition, which we align to. We tweaked it a bit, but it's that sense of confidence, control, and capacity. So if you think about your own personal finances, confidence to make good decisions, not just about today, but also the future. So good decisions around, your utility provider, but also where you might be investing your money for your future retirement. Sense of control is key. And I think Denise touched on this. And I'm sure a lot of people that come to Lantern, one of the big things they're grappling with is they feel out of control. And if you feel out of control, that obviously impacts your mental well-being. So if people are in control of their everyday budgeting, their debt, and debt isn't bad, obviously, but if they're in control of it, they're going to have greater financial well-being. And finally, capacity. And again, this financial shock piece. If you were to face a bill unexpected, what capacity do you have to address that? So we've helped define that for our own people. And this is a definition that we're aligning with all the initiatives we run at Gallagher. So what do we do for our people? And that, by the way, that slide I said at the beginning, that's just the small team. There are 4,500 people within the UK operation at Gallagher and 30,000 people globally. So in terms of what we do for our people, first thing we want to do is really measure, because the challenge with any initiative you run, and I think we see this often in organizations, it's to kind of throw initiatives out there and hope they stick. But it's far better to actually diagnose where the challenges are, because then you can be far more targeted about your interventions. just as you wouldn't go to a doctor and say, I'm feeling a bit unwell, and the doctor says, oh, have this pill or have this, medication, and randomly they actually say, what's going on? What's your challenge? What are the symptoms? And then they diagnose what the issue is. Same with financial well-being. Some people will be struggling with debt. Other people will be worried about how they're going to pay off their student loan. Other people will be worried about how they're going to save for their daughter's wedding. There's lots of different things that are concerning people. So diagnose the issue and then recommend actions. Because again, with any initiative, if you don't take action, it's a waste of time. And don't we know that? But same with fitness, isn't it? You can diagnose, you could do with some more steps or more cardiovascular. If you don't actually do something, it's no good. So we're really, really focused on point solutions that give people a very clear action plan, both for employees and employers, of what they can do, and then finally implement solutions. So we've implemented a tool called MoneyFit. It's fun, it's engaging. We recognize that people will spend an hour or two watching The Crown on Netflix, not a drama. You cannot get, there's never a challenge getting people to spend time in leisure. You try and get people to spend 15 minutes with their money, looking about their pension or looking about their debt or opening that letter, as Denise said. That's the challenge, right? So we recognize that if you were to put a 2-hour intervention into people, you just wouldn't get any buy-in. So we developed this tool that we launched for ourselves and others called MoneyFit, and it's good fun. And people have really engaged with it, which is great. So we push this out to our employee base. Simple email. Don't log in because this is anonymous. Don't download an app because you won't trust us if you download an app. It's just a link. We don't know who you are. We don't do IP address tracking. It's just a fun way of assessing your own attitude to money and then giving you some really clear actions. The big part of this, and the reason why we wanted to do this, is because the data we got out the back of it has really informed our strategy. So some of the examples, this is some live data. I won't say what organization it is, but this is a kind of information we're getting from it. So how many people have bothered to actually complete the health check? So you can see how engaged your people are in doing something that's going to help with their personal finances by age group and also by gender. And then some summary statistics around how people are feeling about their loans, how people are feeling about an emergency debt they might have or payment they might have, how comfortable they feel about paying off their debt, how aware they are of the amount of money that's going into their pension, for example, how in control they feel. And then we've learned from ourselves as well where the kind of areas of real challenge are. So in this organization, for this site, 75% did not know how much they needed in their retirement pot. So the intervention here is, let's do a retirement webinar. Let's get our retirement provider in and actually get that cohort in a room and tell them about the PLSA retirement living standards, tell them the impact of compound interest and where their money might be invested. So let's do some interventions that we know will address those statistics. So it's really that diagnose and then give the solution. And this is just, some data from, over 500 health checks completed across 5 organizations just in the last 2 months. So you can really start to see a picture in the UK on how people are feeling and interacting with their personal finances. These are pretty personal questions we've asked people. They've all been willing to jump in and give the answers because they know it's anonymous. So there you can see in terms of unexpected bill, how many would have absolutely no means of paying it off, how many would have to borrow money. So 1 in 5 50 to 59-year-olds would have to borrow money if they received an unexpected bill. So, that's a statistic that we can take and then say, right, let's do some interventions around having a sidecar saving, how you can build up a small pot of money to draw on for that emergency if it's needed. And again, when it comes to pensions, I'm nearly done on the slides, by the way, when it comes to pensions and loans, this is the piece by gender, but when it comes to pensions and loans, how well aware are you of the amount of money you need in your retirement? And we can see their interventions. It seems a long way off. So no, I don't know how much I need to be saved. Of course, you'd expect that from your 20 to 29 and 30 to 39 cohort. But imagine if you could say to them, if you could afford 1% more in your pension, this is the impact it could give you in 30 years' time. And you compound that and you say, if you could perhaps give up a coffee or something like that a week, that impact could have huge on your pension. So little interventions, going back to that action, that will have a long-term impact on people's finances. And that last one there, really interesting about which of these statements best describes how concerned you feel about your money. And interesting there about the age demographic breakdown there as well, is that, there are some people that are often worried and stressed about their personal finances. And even I do worry sometimes. So clearly, and we know from all the other stats, people do worry. Overall, I feel in control. I mean, that's good news. If one in two of this organisation's 30 to 39-year-olds feel overall control, that's good. But that means 48% don't feel in control. So let's do some interventions for them. And that's the same numbers by gender as well. So really, just in summary, and just to finish, this is the topic areas of interest that people wanted to learn about. So once we've understood and people have understood whether they're an ostrich, an owl, or a kangaroo, and they had this bit of fun intervention. We've had some people saying, I thought I'd be a triple owl. So we do the assessment by the 3 areas of everyday budgeting, managing debt, and saving for tomorrow. And we get people that get quite competitive and said, I was hoping to be an owl in each one of those areas. I actually ended up being a kangaroo in one area. Well, that's because you answered it honestly, which is what we want people to see. And then the interventions. So to finish, this is the kind of interventions that we're doing for our people. So we're running a series of Money Fit webinars for our people. We've got Money Fitness 1, which is talking about good debt and bad debt. Just on the webinars, we do feel that this is one of the most effective ways of getting people to learn about money and talk about money. When you get people on these, they ask questions in chat. I've had questions like, is 7% a good rate on a loan? Now we can't give advice, but we can say, have you looked around? Because 7%, well, of course, depends on your credit rating, etc. But when people jump onto these webinars, they really do find them very valuable. We've got our own mortgage. We've got to deal with a mortgage provider that give free mortgage advice to our people. One of our staff just didn't realise this, and they said they just spent £1,200 on mortgage advice, only to find they get it for free. So again, awareness of employee benefits. Have you ever paid for an eye test when you get it free for your company? Don't pay for one. And then we're doing some sessions. So we've got that mortgage company doing some sessions around, improving your credit rating, mortgage, etc. So that's a kind of whistle-stop tour of the approach that we've taken at Gallagher for our own people. It's very much around diagnose, understand the challenges, and then pinpoint interventions. Everybody that's done Money Fit at Gallagher has got their own Money Fit action plan. So it's a PDF action plan tailored to you, linking out to money and pension service content, modeling tools, links out to some work from Martin Lewis, and it's videos, TED Talks on topics like Save for Tomorrow. So we've just collated all this great stuff and put it together. So everyone in Gallagher's got activity to that. We're going to be running this again in a few months' time. So we do it once, get all the data. We're going to do it again, and hopefully we'll have more owls and less ostriches. That's the hope, because we've done the interventions. So yeah, as you say, Beth, the goal is for it to be fun, because don't we know this topic can be quite boring? I hate to say it, but it can be. Some of my pensions colleagues would agree, but you start talking to a 24-year-old about DC decumulation, and they're not going to be too chuffed. So that's me. Hope that was helpful, and I will stop sharing.
Thank you. I think both of those were fascinating. And I've got a list of sensible questions, but the first one that's come to my mind is, what is a kangaroo?
That is a great question. I'll tell you what, I'll show you what a kangaroo is. So here's the animals on Money Fit. We introduce you to these fun characters, and then we describe what each one of the animals is. So this is the ostrich. Are you an ostrich? Tends to bury their head in the sand, finds the whole subject a bit daunting, could do with a bit of help and hand. Again, the language is not patronizing, and it's fun, and it's not condemning. This is a kangaroo, a bit up and down, sometimes in control, but sometimes not. But you're keen and willing to take positive steps. So you're in control. You take the 2-for-1 offers at Tesco's or Sainsbury's or Waitrose or whatever. So you like your budgeting. But if you're honest, you haven't looked at how your pension's invested, And if you're honest, you are in a default fund and you probably haven't changed your utility provider, and you should be. You're on the standard variable rate. So you're a bit up and down. And then this is the rare breed, but this person knows everything. You can't catch them out. They've got it all sorted. They've got a plan. They're well heeled when it comes to, and they might not be wealthy. Let's be really clear. It's not about wealth. We've got a lot of owls who are on lower income brackets. The levels of stress for higher income is just as high as lower income. So this is just about how people manage their money. Long-winded answer, but that's the three animals.
Fantastic, thank you. So we all aspire to be more owl.
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the campaigns we run with it, actually, is be more owl. Exactly that. And some little teaser owls around. We haven't got into delivering owls to people's desks yet, but that could be the next plan.
It's a logical next step.
Yeah.
No, thank you. Hugely interesting. I guess one of the questions that I've had in the back of my mind is the impact of the COVID pandemic, and have you seen that shifting perhaps the demographics that are needing support with finances, or what have you both seen?
Yeah, I think from our point of view, we've seen a real shift from the over 50s to the under 30s, and actually looking at the stats that Francis showed there, it's obviously a common problem. They need much more help. They've been used to going to the bank of mum and dad, but if mum and dad's bank can't stretch, then they find themselves in difficulty. Having said that, though, the pandemic has been particularly good for our sector. We probably had our best year ever, and that's because people have had more net disposable income because they haven't been going out. We haven't been able to. They haven't had travel costs to work. And actually, they've been paying debt down faster, which has been great to see. But we've also seen that sustained now, because they can see, as Francis said, if they don't buy those coffees, how much can that add up to? And how quickly does that allow them to get out of debt? So there's been a real educational piece through the pandemic for some people, realizing how much money they do actually spend at the coffee station on the way to work, for example, or back. Some people have been spending over £120 a month on coffee, just going to and from work. That's a lot of money, but they didn't appreciate it. So, and they've had the time, having been at home, they've had the time to look at their finances. So we've definitely seen a shift in the right direction for that age group particularly. I don't know what Francis has found.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting point about how COVID has impacted different people in different ways. We've certainly seen a shift in people requiring specific support. I think the debt area is a big one for people, but there's a shift in support around investments. And one of the anecdotal pieces of evidence we've got is a number of people that said they'd like more training on investments, which tells us that there are people that are thinking, I have got some spare cash and I need to do something well with that. So yeah, it's both ways really. And again, if people are making big mistakes there, that has needless to say, a huge impact on their financial well-being. And look, we've seen a number of organizations also saying to us, what can we do? We know there's a problem here, but we don't quite know what the problem is. And there's all sorts of solutions out there. Should we just give people loans? Is that the answer? Should we just let people draw down their salary before it's due? So we've had much more increase in people come to us for those kind of questions. And we do have a view on that in terms of, our view is you're far better teaching people about budgeting than kicking the can down the road.
Yeah. And one of the questions there, I think it's from Carol, is it? About, what do we think we need to do? We need to make happen before we start being as open about debt as we are about mental health issues. And to Francis' point, we need to educate and we need to guide and signpost people. We can't give advice, but we can give them the tools to go and look themselves. And it's amazing actually how many agents that come to work in this operation, when they've been through their induction, they can't believe what help there is out there. They don't know about it, and they've worked in the sector. It is an age thing. It's the younger generation again, don't tend to know as much, because they don't, like you say, they'll watch The Crown, but they won't sit and Google, where can I get help for this? So we've started giving them access to money coaches and to pension advice. So we pay for an IFA to come in here, and they all can spend an hour or two with them during working time. They've got to plan it with their line manager, but they find it really useful, really useful. I think it's just giving them the tools and giving them the time to do it in work time, so they won't do it in their own time. I think that's one of the things I would say.
Absolutely, I can well believe that. I think even anecdotally with my friends, there are very few topics that are off the table, but the one thing that we haven't ever really talked about is money. And I guess if you don't talk about it, you don't share tips, do you? Like you would in any other area of life. And then that's where that knowledge becomes harder to find and harder to talk about. I guess another question that's come through that sort of builds on that point is how best we can support managers potentially having those conversations. You know, what can they do if they ask the question of someone, you know, you haven't seemed yourself, is there anything going on that we could help you with? If that person responds saying it is at the bottom of it, financial concerns, where should the manager go next, do you think?
Yeah, I think, well, personally, we've had 2 recent cases where when we get new debt in, we sweep our system to see if our agents or, well, staff are on there, because we need to make sure that they're not writing their own debts off, etc. And we need to make sure that they've got help and support. Now, if we see something, we will reach out to the colleague. But on occasions, we've had them reach out to us first, which is good. I'm not sure their line manager is always the right person to have the discussion, because it is really, really close to their heart, and they're nervous about opening up. HR can be the right place to have the conversation. But I have now, we're 140 people, so I can do this, but I will have the conversation with them because I want to put their mind at rest, and I want them to open up, and I want them to know that I'm not going to tell anyone else. So I think it's important in the operation to make sure it's someone that they know will not look upon them in an unfavorable manner or use it at some point, or being discreet. So I think it's key that the person that they can approach is the right person, and that may be someone in HR, but there's going to give them a solution, help them, and not use it in the wrong way. I think that's key for me.
Yeah, I just think following on from that as well, there is a real concern amongst managers that they might give the wrong advice, or, you know, and suddenly become liable. You told me to do this and I did it, and now I'm even worse off, etc. I think the best thing that managers can do is signpost their employees to their EAP or to other support that might be available, because I know that EAP providers have seen an uplift in requests around money. The other thing is that, for example, the Money and Pension Service have launched a Facebook. They launched a Facebook group called Coronavirus and Your Money, and it's got about 11,000 members on it. And, you know, people are on that asking advice, but, you know, from advisors who are government funded, to say this is what you should do, you know, go to this debt support agency or whatever it might be. So I think it's about signposting and also showing empathy and not judging. And it's really key. I understand that's really difficult for you. We do want to support you as an employer. And there are these things in place that could help you. But not be afraid of that. Oh, I can't talk about money because it's, you know, I might get it wrong.
I think that, and I think I totally agree with all that. And I think one of the things that wasn't appreciated is what was happening in that person's life that got them into this situation. And when you sit down with them, it's quite eye-opening, because you see people in a workplace and we all have to put a happy face on every day despite what's going on at home. And it's quite, I think it's quite cathartic for them, to be honest with you. You know, a problem shared is a problem halved. And I think that talking about it is so important, even if you can't, and you shouldn't give them advice at the end of the day, you should signpost them, just talking about it. I got an email from one of the girls who's been here a long time, and she sent me an email saying, I cannot tell you how much I appreciated that conversation, because it made me feel so much better. And it's just talking to someone, and they often can't speak to family and friends because they don't want to worry their family, and they don't want to expose themselves to friends. So I think it's really key to have someone they can speak to.
Absolutely. And it's brilliant as well, Denise, that you're able to be that person too. I think that's a great example of kind of role modeling from a leadership perspective, and also helping to erode the stigma around talking about it, which is one of the best things that we can do, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm just scrolling through to see what other juicy questions we have coming through. So there's a question for you, Francis, about the initiatives that you've put in place. Have you started mapping the impact of those, either formally or informally? Have you seen any shifts already? More owls, maybe?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, actually. I think that in any initiative like this, it's critical to demonstrate that it's having an impact and it's making a change. Now, there's anecdotal evidence around the comments people are making about, you know, just generally, I love doing that. I found that very helpful. We've designed the tool such that as people are going through it, it's challenging them. It's making them think, you know, so even that process of, I was speaking to a colleague and, you know, he looked like a triple owl. And I said to him, how much junk have you got in your garage that you could sell? And it was like, good point. Good. There's still things we could do. So we've got there's a lot of conversation going around. So that's a good thing in and of itself. People are starting to talk more about the topic of money. It's less of a taboo. When it comes to the evidence of some of the initiatives. So one of the things that really works effectively is very simple modeling tools where people can see the impact of decisions they're making today on long term. So, for example, one of those is a small change modeler. Lots of organizations use these kind of tools, and you can get them on a lot of pensions websites and provider websites. And you put in for example, if I was to give up, you know, the coffee and the eating out, etc., what impact would that have long term? When we've implemented those kind of tools, we've been really keen to measure the level of interaction with those tools and also what people have done as a result of interacting with those. And that one example I showed right at the beginning with the people outside Heath Hall, in that we saw that 40% of those that interacted with the tool then went on to make an intervention that improved their financial well-being. So those people made a decision after interacting with it to either increase their contribution or do some kind of, it might have been a bonus transfer into their pension pot, but they actually did something as a result of logging in. We did some similar analysis around animated pension statements. So if you put the word video in the subject header of an email, the open rate goes up by 300%. So just by putting the word video. So we know that you can't engage people by saying, here's a letter about your DC pension pot and how it performed and a chairman's statement. That, you know, people won't open that. But if you say, here's a video about your future, or here's a video, people will open that and they'll watch it. So again, when we've implemented those kind of tools, we can see the number of people that have watched the video and then gone on and clicked through to see how they're performing and what they need to do to improve that. So that kind of real raw data is what we're looking for, because it demonstrates that people are taking steps. And you know, we saw with that video example, you know, good percentage of people then going on and taking an action. And then just to finish, in terms of what we're really wanting to see, and we'll do that once we do Money Fit 2 for Gallagher for our own people, is we're going to take that data that we get from the second version. There'll be a couple of nuances, because there'll be new starters that didn't do it in the first tranche, and there'll be people that don't bother doing it again. But we'll get a broad overview of where things are tracking. And we'll see by gender, by age, where the ostriches, owls and kangaroos are, but more importantly, where people are answering the question. So we will have that data set in a couple of months' time.
Fantastic, thank you. And a final question from me before I dip into our Q&A pot. So if you're listening and you haven't asked your question yet, please do pass it through. I guess I'm interested, now that we're going through probably another transition point in relation to COVID, you know, maybe people are returning to physical workplaces after having been at home, having potentially more money to save, or indeed supported partners or family members that have lost jobs and that kind of thing. What advice do you have for both employers and individuals around the kind of financial planning of the return to workplaces?
Yeah, I think, well, I guess it depends on what the approach is going to be. Is it going to be full-time return? Is it going to be hybrid approach? Is it going to be working from home permanently? Because all of those things will have a different impact. We decided to do a hybrid approach because it gave our employees an increase, if you like, because they don't have the travel costs. We gave them lots of notice so they could prepare, and they could let us know what is it that might stop them coming back full time, what's changed in their family or in their environment during lockdown, because it's changed for different reasons for different people. I mean, yeah, I've got some people saying I've got 2 dogs now, so I want to work permanently from home, and that's maybe not a reason not to go back. But if someone's got a family member that now has long COVID, for instance, and they need help and assistance, then that has to be considered. So again, it's about sending the surveys out regularly, even keeping up to them ongoing, because it hasn't gone away. And then making sure that we're listening to people and meeting up with them and coming to a solution that helps them, because they need help to plan. You know, some members of staff we're panicking, thinking, I need to go back, but I'm not ready yet for whatever reason. So again, it's engaging and listening and working with them, because we've all been working from home at some point, so we know it works. So it isn't a case of just switching it all off. I think it's just finding that happy medium, and it'd be different for different people. Some people want to come back, some people don't. So it's talking and listening, I think, and not forcing something on someone that enables them or doesn't enable them to plan properly, because there could be childcare issues as well as elderly parents, etc. Yeah, that's my advice.
Thanks, Denise.
Yeah, I just think following on from that, one of the interesting areas is around employee benefit communication and effectiveness of it, because a lot of employee benefits are actually focused on saving money, you know, be it a cycle scheme or discount vouchers, etc. And it used to be you'd have benefit fairs, benefit roadshows, posters all up around the office. You know, you'd be really able to engage in that physical way as well as digitally with employees. I think it's going to be quite interesting to see how effective communication is impacted by a much larger digital audience. And also on that is the impact of actually direct marketing and sending. You see posts on LinkedIn about people sending packs to their employees' homes. And I think there is something around, you know, how employers need to think about how can we take all of our financial well-being tools and support and make sure our people see this, make sure they're aware of it. So if we are doing a money webinar, let's make sure people know it's on and can dial in and can make the most of that. Because it used to be a lot easier just to rally everyone round and say, right, lunchtime today, getting some bacon sandwiches in, we're going to have a money webinar. And you'd get people all piling into the room and get on with it. Now we're digitally saturated, and it's like another thing to go to. So I think we have to be really quite creative about that hybrid model of still engaging people in their employee benefits and what we're doing to support them. Because it's about return on investment. Companies are spending millions or hundreds of thousands of pounds on their pension, and you've got that percentage of employees that don't even know they've got it, let alone what percentage their employees putting into it. So I think the comms is critical in all of this.
Thank you.
I totally agree with that. It's and we launched something on the intranet. We built an intranet for that very purpose. But again, as Francis said, you still have to keep people engaged, and they don't just think, oh, it's the intranet and I won't bother looking at it today. So it's a different way of getting them to engage because they're not here. It's not as easy, is it? So yeah, I think you've got to be continually evolving that with your people.
Absolutely. And I love what you said, Denise, about sort of having that quite individual approach, listening to what the needs are first. And then, I mean, that's part of the comms process, isn't it? You kind of pitch the solutions then in line with what people have as needs rather than just saying,
So
we've got a webinar.
So many things come out of the ideas forum. And I don't allow managers to come. It's for, there's a colleague representative out of every area of the business, but it's below manager. The things that come out of that, it's once a quarter I do it. We have a cup of tea and I spend 2 hours with them. All sorts of things come out. It's great. And then it gets filtered off to the different execs to pick up. Yeah, I think just talking to people is the best thing. So yeah.
Absolutely. Listening. Fabulous. Right, I'm going to do sort of quick fire round now of the different questions that have come through. So we've had one here. Is MoneyFit available for all organisations? And how do you access this resource if it is available? That's one for you, Francis.
Oh yeah, that's a good question. Yes, yes, it is. I mean, we built it for ourselves because we wanted a new way and an innovative way to deliver this for our people. But yes, it is available for organisations big and small. I think we start with 5 employees up to as many. And the organisations that have adopted it, they've done it because they've wanted to give their people a tool that isn't too onerous. Because, I think a lot of these tools, you're integrating with your existing IT system and, you've got GDPR issues. We've skirted around all of that by it's literally just a link and that's it, because we're not collecting any data individually. So, yes, it is available. Probably best to, I don't know if my details are available on this call or I could drop them in chat, but just reach out to me on email and we could have a chat.
Thank you. And I've had a follow-up question from that is, do you have any indication on costs? I understand if it's something you share one-on-one.
Yeah, I really didn't. I genuinely didn't want this to be a pitch, and it isn't. But yes, I do have an indication on cost. It starts from about £1,000 for 6 months for employees. So it's low cost. We've done it that way deliberately because we recognise that, again, you want your money and budget to go on helping your people, and we'd far rather see you buying, into discount vouchers or cycle scheme. But yeah, there is a bit of cost just in setup and database time and what have you, but it's low cost.
Thank you. And I'm sure Scott, who is our invisible but supremely excellent IT support and marketing specialist, we'll make sure that we get the details of all of us sent out after this. So if you do want to follow up and you have any other questions, you can. So another question that's come through on the Q&A for Denise. They're wondering if and how you work with other debt management organisations or charities, for example, Step Change.
Yeah, so we work very closely with Step Change and Payplan because they're the largest, but with all the others. There's a lot of work goes in the background to ensure that reconciliations are done correctly and money is allocated to customer accounts. But we signpost customers to Step Change every single day. If we have a customer that we can see is struggling, then we will signpost them to free debt management advice. It's on our website, it's on our customer portal, and it's part of the script. The agents will be marked down on their scorecard for not doing that if the customer was seen to be struggling. So yeah, we do a lot of work with them. I know the guys there very well.
Okay, well, thank you, Denise.
I would say that over 40%, maybe 50% now of our customers that are in a payment plan is through a debt management plan. It's quite big.
Brilliant, thank you. I think it's so important, isn't it, that we work together to solve these things?
Yeah, and I think the other thing that I didn't mention there is, as many others do, we pay a fair share contribution, which is around 10% of our income every single month goes to the free sector to help support them. It's quite a lot of money. So we all do that in the sector, pay a fair share contribution.
Thank you. And that is the last of the questions that came through from people listening today. So I guess all that remains is for me to say thank you so much, Frances and Denise. It's been a pleasure. I think we have made this pretty fun and entertaining. I've certainly learnt a lot. And thank you to everybody that shared your time with us this morning as well. I know they're all very busy and it's back to school. So thank you very much and have a wonderful day.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.